Judy, I met you probably in 1999, about that time when I started coming to Dallas. Back then, you were running a couple of different businesses. So, back then? What was your passion, and kind of bring people up to now?
Well, I was going to do that in my presentation, but I'll do it
Well,
real quick.
Tell you what. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to read your bio, and then
Okay.
we'll go directly into the presentation.
Okay.
All right. So Judy Glick-Smith, PhD, as an author, technical communication expert, knowledge architect, and leadership development consultant for over 40 years. Judy is a past international president and fellow of the Society for Technical Communication. She is a recognized expert on the topic of flow-based decision-making, and flow-based leadership. She is passionate about helping individuals and organizations make better decisions and prepare for the unexpected by facilitating flow in their lives and work environments. Judy is the author of Flow-Based Leadership, excuse me, What the Best Firefighters Can Teach You About Leadership and Making Hard Decisions, which was #1 on Fire Chief Magazine's top 9 public safety leadership books of 2016. She is also a co-contributor and co-editor of the following books: Visionary Leadership in a Turbulent World, Leading in the New VUCA Context, which made the Forbes Summer Reading List for 2017, Exceptional Leadership by Design, and Women Courageous, Leading Through the Labyrinth. She has been studying flow-based decision-making and leadership in fire and emergency management services for over 15 years. Her PhD is in the transformative studies with a concentration in integrated studies from the California Institute of Integral Studies. She has a Master of Science in Conflict Management from Kennesaw State University. And it's my great pleasure to introduce you guys to Judy Glick-Smith. Thanks for coming, Judy.
Thank you. So we have a lot to cover today. So I'm going to go real fast because I'd like to. This is a presentation about the basics of flow, and then I'm going to give you a little case study about that is from the fire service, but that is applicable to any organization, including IT. And but I start every presentation with an acknowledgement. On April 16th, 2007, Kyle Robert Wilson, a firefighter for Prince William County Department of Fire Rescue, lost his life in the line of duty. I didn't know Kyle, but his sacrifice forever changed the trajectory of my life. So how did I get here? I've been working in IT my whole life. Like Mike said, I met him in the late 90s. And I think you came to my knowledge management forums for a while, and then we knew each other in AITP and some other organizations around Dallas.
That's right.
But I started my career in IT as a programmer for Atlanta Gaslight Company in 1980. So I've been around a long time. I was an IBM 360 mainframe programmer, coding and assembler, CICS macro and command level, and I was limited to 64K of space to develop a brand new system for people to turn on their gas in Atlanta. The manager of that data processing department was a big believer in documentation. In fact, not documenting your system in the JCL that ran it was a fireable offense. He personally reviewed every system before we put it into production. So because of him, I received excellent training and good habits in IT. I got trained. I was mentored by the old guys, one of whom actually worked on the original ENIAC when he was in the military. And they helped me develop really good programming habits. And they had, when I go back and look at that, a flow-based work environment. I've only run into a handful of organizations since that time that I would consider a full flow-based work environment. So when I moved to Texas in 1987, I set up a technical communication consulting firm that specialized in documenting systems for programmers in a maintenance environment. I got really tired of trying to maintain systems that had no documentation. And so that was a niche market for me. I ended up doing more forensic documentation, though, than documentation that happened at the front end, where you do requirements and you write your documentation. I was passionate about the idea that if you documented your system before you coded it, coding would be clerical. Of course, people didn't want to hear that, but I ended up documenting systems when they got in trouble with the FDA or the auditors came in, and that's when when I got my gigs. I ran that consulting firm for 16 years, and then 9/11 happened and everything went poof. So I went back to school to get a PhD. I was interested in why people make the decisions they do. And but I didn't want to be limited to any one field of study. So I found a transdisciplinary program at the California Institute of Integral Studies. And that allowed me to look at my area of inquiry across multiple disciplines. In the process of reviewing the literature on transformation, I discovered the concept of flow, which is a well-researched, thoroughly quantified concept in the field of positive psychology. Flow has very distinct characteristics, which we're going to talk about in a minute. I happened to mention these characteristics to my brother-in-law, a retired battalion chief from Prince William County, Virginia, and he stopped me and told me Kyle's story. It turns out my brother-in-law was the A-side, or the front of the house commander on that incident, and he is the one who made the call not to rescue Kyle, who had become trapped in the house. And I realized all the characteristics of flow were in his decision-making process. So I went back to my committee and I asked them if I could look at the flow experiences of firefighters in the midst of a critical incident. And they really liked that focus for my study. And I wanted to know if being in a flow state facilitated decision-making. And I found that the answer is yes, but only if you have the right training and experience. So what attracted me to fire and EMS versus IT or any other discipline was its focus on mission, service, and purpose. This slide is from the fire department instructors conference, which just happened last week. And it's the largest fire conference in the world with 35,000 plus attendees. David Rhodes, who you will hear me talk about a lot, was in my study. And he now runs this conference. And he said in his opening statement, or his opening speech for that conference, we are not in the fire service to serve conservative or progressive issues. We are in the fire service to serve the people. That is what attracted me to the fire service. They're committed to service to the public. They they genuinely love each other. They have a sense of family. It's a brother sisterhood. They are not perfect, I will tell you. They have their own issues. They have their own leadership issues and internal political issues that are just kind of take me aback sometimes. But they are united in purpose. And that's what attracted me to the fire service. When I was David Rhodes also headed up, when I was working on my study, he headed up an extreme experiential training program in fire and EMS called Georgia Smoke Diver. And when I published my dissertation, he invited me to attend one of their trainings. I've attended over 25 Georgia Smoke Diver trainings since 2011. My book, Flow-Based Leadership, is a mashup of my dissertation and my on-the-ground study with the GSD program. And they're the case study that I want to tell you about, and we'll go through that real quickly. So let's talk about flow. So we know, so you're talking about the same thing I am. Flow is a feeling. It is not a thing. It's personal. No one can define for you what your flow state is or how to initiate it. While you can have what is called team flow or group flow, all members of the group must be in flow individually for there to be a group flow experience. Flow is present-based. It's not oriented in the future or the past. It happens now. Flow does not occur when you're at rest. Therefore, you can experience flow in any activity. When you're in the flow, you feel as if you are working authentically at your highest potential. People refer to it as like being in the zone or bringing your A game. It's also referred to as optimal experience or peak performance. So I want you to think about an activity that you love to do where you are working toward clear goals with feedback in the moment. The awareness of what you're doing and action merge. You're concentrating on the task at hand. You have a sense of control and confidence in what you're doing. There is a loss of sense of self, and there's temporal distortion. That means time speeds up, it slows down, or you just have no sense of time. And the experience itself is autotelic. That means you would do the activity for the sake of the activity. So keep thinking about that, whatever it is that came to mind, because we're going to look at that again in a minute. Went too far, sorry. Here we go. So the two researchers that kind of were working in parallel in the 1980s were Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He's the one who quantified flow, and then there's Martin Seligman. And over the last 40 years, there's been a number of researchers, and they have found that flow promotes productivity, happiness, connectedness, well-being, and love. So how does it work? Flow is the intersection of skill and challenge. That means you can be in a flow state at no matter what level of experience you have with an activity. If you have enough skill to meet the challenge of that activity, you can drop into flow. So think about that activity you thought of a few minutes ago. Let's say you're doing the activity and you're just going along and everything's rocking and rolling, and all of a sudden something comes at you you've never seen before, and you become anxious. Anxiety pulls you out of flow. So go back to that activity. You're going along within that activity. There's certain tasks that you're doing, and you do them over and over and over again, and all of a sudden they become boring. Boredom pulls you out of flow. And the way you mitigate anxiety and boredom is through training and experience. That's what mitigates boredom and anxiousness. All flow activities are transformative. It's not always easy to transform into flow. However, you can improve your ability to do it. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's research identified 3 conditions that need to be in place for transformation into flow. Unconscious self-assurance, which comes out of knowledge of self, contextual knowledge, and knowledge of the tools and methods available to you to do the activity. Number 2, focused attention on the world, where work is no longer about you. It requires that we keep the other first and foremost in our mind. Who are we doing the work for? Who is the customer? Service requires commitment and a desire to build a better future for those who come after us and for those we serve. And the third characteristics for transforming into flow is that we're working on solving the obstacles that get in the way of meeting your goals. So let's talk quickly about flow triggers. Flow triggers weren't on my radar when I was doing my study, but I quickly noticed that firefighters I interviewed prefaced their stories with circumstances that caused them to drop into flow. Most often it was something out of the ordinary, like they'd pull up on scene and there'd be a woman screaming in the driveway, which meant there was probably a child inside. Your flow triggers are different from anyone else's. You can learn to identify your own flow triggers by paying attention in the moment and exercising situation awareness. You can learn to consciously trigger flow through training and experience. In his book, The Stress Effect, H.L. Thompson provides a model for dealing with stress. This model also serves as a model for triggering and maximizing flow states. He calls it Arsenal: awareness, rest, support, exercise, nutrition, attitude, and learning. I used to believe in the importance of life balance. I still do to a certain degree. However, if you're completely balanced, you are a closed system. Closed systems ultimately implode on themselves. This was brought home in January of 2017 when I watched Melissa Russell, Georgia Smoke Diver number 976, go through the program. Melissa was the first woman in 23 years to finish the Georgia Smoke Diver program. She trained and conditioned for over a year prior to going through the class. The guys didn't cut her any slack. This program is designed, this program will start out with about 40 people in the class and only graduate between 15 and 18 people. And that's because their standards are so high, and they don't cut anybody slack, whether a woman or short or whatever. You have to meet the standard to pass the class. She was, her class named her the class leader, a position she kept the entire week, which was unusual because of the attrition rate. I noticed about halfway through the week she was having trouble breathing. When she graduated, she went to the hospital and found out she had double pneumonia. I sat down with her the following class and asked her about her experience going through the class being physically compromised. She told me she didn't have time to be sick. She had to make sure her classmates were eating enough. And getting to the training ground on time each morning, and that they were all okay. She was completely focused outward. She did not experience a sense of self. She was able to act with confidence from a place of knowing because of her high cognitive ability, low inhibition, and high emotional intelligence. She moved through time from one moment to the next while staying in the present. So let's talk a little bit about decision making. When we're in school or in the business world, we are taught to contrast option and choose the best alternative for the situation. However, most people do not make decisions this way. Even if there's a great deal of information and plenty of time to evaluate options, this kind of analysis is not practical in most settings. Researchers point out that even though we are defined by our decisions, we're often completely unaware of what's happening inside our heads during the decision-making process. In critical situations, emotions take over. We resort to what we know worked the last time something similar happened and go with that solution. Experience and experiential training facilitate accurate reliance on emotion, which leads to right action. There are a lot of researchers. There are foundational researchers. I have 3 books by 3 new researchers in decision making that I haven't even read yet. But the one that I want to talk about the most is Gary Klein, because he actually did work in fire and EMS. His recognition primed decision model is based on field studies of the way that experienced personnel actually make decisions. The model explains how you use experience to react rapidly and make good decisions without having to contrast options. The model has been tested and supported by research teams working in a variety of settings. RPD is used by people with experience who use mental simulation, a deliberate, conscious process that helps make sense of events and form an explanation. We recognize patterns that remind us of previous events. And usually we will scan each explanation to see if these are elements that do not seem plausible, so we can reject the less likely ones and keep the best. And this is how, when we construct these mental simulations, also known as story models or slides, for each iteration of experience, we're better able to respond quickly to events. And I had one firefighter in my study who was a wildland firefighter who gave me her stories in the form of slides, and she called them that. That was my introduction to Gary Klein's work. So flow-based leadership, if we put it all together, consists of, when you are a flow-based leader, you are taking responsibility for your own flow states and actively, consciously facilitating the flow states of others. You do this by leading by example, which means you're modeling behavior for others. You communicate what's important to you. You're prepared. You're ready to, you attend to all aspects of your life. You maintain yourself, your equipment, your home. You attend to others you impact, and you build community for yourself. You show up. You honor your commitments. You're on time. You do your best. You practiced emotional intelligence and nurture the ability to plan while staying in the present. One of the dynamics of fire and EMS that interested me was the leadership structure at the fire ground. The highest ranking member on scene becomes the incident commander. If a firefighter 1, that's the lowest level, is first on scene, he or she commands the scene until someone of higher rank arrives. Leadership is a collaborative model. Everyone has to be a leader. Everyone is responsible for reporting what they see, because you don't have a 360-degree picture unless everybody says what they see. If the incident commander sees something, the incident commander is receiving all of this information. And if they see the smoke change, for example, you can tell when a house is getting ready to flash over. The smoke changes. And if he sees that, he tells everybody to get out of the building, and everybody gets out of the building. So the model of leadership goes from being collaborative to being autocratic instantly. And this is called dynamic subordination. Because your frontal lobe is less active when you are in a flow state, it's easy to turn off self-interest to merge with the team. If the team trains together regularly, they trust one another. This facilitates appropriate response in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment, enabling recognition-primed decision-making. I was going to tell you a story. Mike, can you give me a time count? I don't have I'm not.
Sure. We have about 10 minutes or so.
Okay. And I'm not even halfway there. I want to give you a quick overview of the Georgia Smoke Diver program. If we only have 10 minutes, okay, so I'll tell it to you really quick. The Georgia Smoke Diver program, after attending for a couple of years, I realized there was there were patterns of leadership that I noticed that repeated themselves over time, and that they were able to evergreen themselves. That program has been in existence since 1978. And when you think about how the working life of a firefighter is about 20 to 25 years. That is pretty amazing that they had been able to sustain this program since 1978. And that's how I came to write my flow-based leadership book. But I came up with this model based on, and I don't know if you can see it real well, but I'll go through it real quick. The model looks like it does because I don't have columns like some consultants, because all of these things have to be in place for it to work. And I use the model of a murmuration of starlings, which I know y'all living in Texas have seen. So that's, everything has to work together for it to work. They lead by example. That's a servant leadership issue. They communicate their mission. They commit to a stable infrastructure. I can't tell you how many consulting jobs I have had in IT where I have gone in and they've been in a hurry to start a project. I get there and they don't have a laptop for me, and they haven't had and they won't have the laptop for me for 2 weeks. And then it'll be a week after that before I get credentials to open it. So that has happened more times than I can count. So when I saw how they put together this program, it costs, each training costs around $800,000, and they pull it together, and they don't even, the students, I've talked to students after they've gone through the program and they come back to be instructors. And I ask them, did you know all this was going on behind the scenes when you were here? And they said, no. When you come as a student, all you do is, your job is to be a student, to learn, and you don't know what is going on behind the scenes. There's food, there's computers, there are monitors for weather and humidity, and there are 100 instructors for 40 students on the first day. And by the end of the week, the ratio will be 3 to 1. Three instructors per student. So infrastructure is huge. Ritual, you bind the group with ritual, storytelling, knowledge sharing and collaboration. And I'd like to tell you more about that, but we don't have time. They honor individual creativity. There are no wrong answers. If you can solve the issue, if you can solve the problem of getting a firefighter, a downed firefighter, out of a small hallway, out a window, that it's called the Denver drill, and it's taught all over the world. And there is no one way to do that. So all solutions are honored. They use positive motivation techniques. They evergreen their program through mentoring. So in conclusion, these are the things that I want to implore you to do. So strive to maximize your flow states, choose to be happy, work hard, have fun, be prepared, practice your craft, Hang on to your buddy. Rest when you get tired. Stay hydrated. Take time to meditate. Teach and mentor others. Foster community. Celebrate success. Facilitate the flow states of others. And grow the next generation of leaders so that you evergreen your organization. FDIC was last week, the conference that I told you about. Last year I got to go to it, and I met Captain William Guston, and he's an amazing man. He does not he was named Instructor of the Year last year. Everyone knew him. He never misses an opportunity to teach. He was also the longtime fire engineering technical editor. Fire Engineering is a publishing company for the fire service. He's the consummate servant leader and a strong proponent of the power of mentoring. I don't know if you can read it on there, but his cause of death only 2 years before this conference was suicide. Suicide and cancer have become the largest causes of death of firefighters in this country. I include this frame because the next slide, or the video that we're going to show, refers to Bill. The Bill always said, never stop being a student. Learn something and share something every single day. So can you play that video for me, Mike?
Sure. I can play about 5 minutes of it. Is that good?
Oh, no, it's only 2 minutes long from that.
Okay. Perfect.
From 2811, it's only 2 minutes. It's very short.
All right, let me add it. Bear with me.
This was the end of David Rhodes's speech, and he was very close to Bill when it kind of threw everybody off when Bill died.
Here you go.
Okay.
Finding meaning in a crazy world. It goes like this. People are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. If you do good, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. If you are successful, you will win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. The good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Honesty and frankness make you vulnerable. Be honest and frank anyway. The biggest men and women with the biggest ideas can be shot down by the smallest men and women with the smallest minds. Think big anyway. People favor underdogs, but only follow top dogs. Fight for a few underdogs anyway. What you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. Build big anyway. People really need help, but may attack you if you do help them. Help people anyway. Give the world the best you have, and you'll get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you have anyway. To quote Bill Guston, may God bless you and keep you safe in this most noble profession. Thank you.
Wow, that was pretty incredible.
That's David Rhodes. He is my mentor. He is an amazing man and one of the most. He is servant leader personified. I didn't get into the parallels of this with Agile.
Right.
Agile, and I'll talk about it for just a second, if you don't mind. Agile has some of the same elements, a lot of the same elements. They have the idea of ritual. They have the idea of having meetings often, short meetings often, so that you stay on point. But I have never I've worked in a lot of Agile environments, and I've never seen it practiced at its truest form. They always put a little, they'll have part waterfall, part Agile, or they'll have a lot of Agile and a little bit of waterfall, or a lot of waterfall and a little bit of Agile. And then you have people who make hybrids that I don't even recognize. But but if they did, the idea, the purest, Agile in its purest form is parallel to what I'm promoting here, because it fosters community. You have two programmers working on you have two people working on the same problem, which and I've never been in an environment where they actually did that, but in its purest form, it would work. So, but you have to, my whole message is training and experience is the name of the game. You can't throw your programmers at something without making sure they're trained at it, and then make sure that they like what they're doing, because they'll be more productive if they enjoy the tasks that they're working on. So,
Absolutely.
Any questions? I'm just like rambling now.
Yeah, so we have time for one question. Does anybody have one that they would like to ask Judy? I think because of the clarity of your presentation, Judy, you pretty much nailed the definitions that you set out to nail. I think that from a leadership perspective, you really were able to bring us into the feeling of what flow looks like and how it happens, and why it's important to get there, right? So I think a lot of what you're talking about is unconscious competency, right? Because I've heard the full fire smoke divers presentation before. They train them to be in a fire. They literally have to crawl through fire on multiple occasions in this experience, so that when they have somebody that's stuck at the end of a fire breathing in situation, they know how to get in there, and they can subjugate their own fear to do what they know to do with the protections that they have to get it done. So
they're building cellular memory so that they can do it by rote.
Absolutely.
And then if something comes in at them that they didn't recognize, they can attend to that, because the rest of their mind and their body understands how to handle that particular situation. Absolutely. You're right. Yeah.
So Judy,
and we want our development teams to be that way too.
Absolutely. So your books are out on Amazon. If they just search on your name, they'll find it. The one that you took most of this from was the Flow-Based Leadership book, correct?
Right.
Awesome. Well, very good. Well, please stick around. I really appreciate you taking the time to come out and share with us tonight. God bless you, and we'll talk with you soon. If you stay through the end, we'll say that again. So bear with me for just a second.
Okay.
So Harish, about a minute of membership.
Absolutely.